Albert's girlfriend cheated on him weeks before prom, but then he shows up with Kylie Jenner. Albert and Mia met in grade 10 and were madly in love. But as prom approached at the end of their grade 12 year, Albert noticed Mia had been turning off her Snap location every Thursday while he was at football practice. So one Thursday, Albert skipped practice and immediately drove over to where her Snap location last was. It was at his best friend's house, and when he peeped inside the window, he could see Mia was cheating on him. The next day, he was forced to break up with her and was absolutely devastated. I mean, prom was in 3 weeks and he had no one to go with. But that night, he got a DM from Kylie Jenner saying she wanted to be his prom date. 3 weeks later, she showed up at his house with a film crew ready for prom. They went together and things were going great. But then his ex-girlfriend showed up out of nowhere. Before I tell you, do you want to get paid to literally just walk? Well, I found an app that pays you for literally every single step you take. And you're already walking 10,000 steps a day, so you might as well get paid for it. Just press the link in my bio if you want to get paid too. She poured her drink all over Albert's head, but he was still crowned as prom king. Here's why XXX Tentacion is actually still alive. X was murdered on June 18th, 2018, which broke the hearts of the entire world. There's a public memorial X's body lays in where anyone can visit. And some people have found more than they bargained for. A YouTube channel called The Fam posted a video of him trying to communicate with a beloved rapper, but no one could have predicted what he was about to see. But someone else captured much more than that, and I'm about to play you that video. Before I show you, I found an app that can read your palms and predict your future. Press here in my bio if you want to see your future, if you dare. A YouTuber named Sarah the Explorer actually got to communicate with X, and here's what he had to say.
Your favorite song that you ever recorded? What's the name of your favorite song? Are you in the bright light? Is there anything else you want to tell us?
These are the scariest booby traps in the entire world. Number 1. The Punji Sticks. This trap was made with sharpened bamboo sticks, which was often covered in feces to cause an infection. The Vietnamese would dig a hole and then put the spikes on the bottom and then cover the top with leaves and grass. Many soldiers would fall in the hole, get impaled by the spikes, and then later die from an infection. Number 2. The Mace. This was a giant metal or wooden ball with rusty spikes attached to it. When a soldier steps on the tripwire, the giant metal or wooden ball would swing down from a tree and impale the soldier, usually killing them. Plastic surgeries that went way too far. Sahar Taber was a 21-year-old girl from Iran and she was very beautiful. But in 2017, she started changing up her look and she even got famous because of it. Little by little, she began to change until she looked like this. She was even nicknamed the ugly version of Angelina Jolie, but it turns out she wasn't even trying to look like her. She was actually inspired by Emily from The Corpse Bride.
This is the worst torture method you will ever see. It's called tickle torture, but don't let the name fool you. Now, this technique originated in China back in 200 BC, but the way the Romans did it is so much worse. First, your feet will be strapped down and covered in honey. Then thirsty goats will come and lick them. Now, at first, the rough tongue of the goat would tickle you, sending you into a fit of laughter. The only problem is they cover your feet with honey over and over again, until the goats eventually start licking into your flesh. This fully exposes the millions of ultra-sensitive nerve endings at the bottom of your feet. Eventually, your brain can't handle it and you'll die in a state of shock. Whatever you see first reveals what type of person you are. Now take a look at this picture. If you saw the waterfall first, it means you're super social, but you also love your alone time. But if you saw the people in the white robes first, it means you feel lost in your life right now. You don't know where you're headed, but you're determined to make it in life. Next, look closely at this picture. Now if you saw the trees first, it means you have massive goals for the future, and you do anything to achieve them. But if you saw the skyscrapers first, it means you dream of being in a big city and want to get out of your small town.
Here are 4 signs that you've been mentally abused. Number 1. You apologize all the time. And you even apologize for things that aren't even your fault. Number 2. You always need reassurance. You need to know that they love you because love in your childhood was very rare. Number 3. You used to have mental breakdowns for no apparent reason. Like if someone raises their voice at you, you randomly start crying. Number 4, you never accept compliments. You just don't think they're true because deep down you don't think anyone will ever like you. Here are 3 times when actors weren't acting. Number 1, in the movie Harry Potter, Harry's scream left the entire cast and crew in shock. Well, it turns out he was actually screaming for real because earlier that morning his grandma passed away. Number 2, from the show The Fresh Prince, Will Smith was supposed to be talking about his father in the show, but he was actually talking about his real father who left him as a child. All of his emotions were 100% real. Number 3, while filming the show Riverdale, the actor Luke Perry sadly passed away. And when they held the funeral for his character in the show, all of the actors were actually crying and showing real emotions.
Plastic surgery gone way too far. Joe Megler is a 22-year-old from Germany. As he was shaving one day, he accidentally nicked his cheek. A trail of blood came rolling down, but instead of getting scared, he was inspired. You see, Joe was a huge fan of Batman and absolutely loves the Joker. So instead of putting a band-aid on the cuts, he made it bigger. Little by little, he stretched it even bigger until eventually there was a hole in his cheek. Today, Joe does everyday things like brushing his teeth through the hole and even eats food through it. 1 in a billion coincidences. A man in New Jersey bought a $5 bottle of orange juice back in 2018, but the moment he got home, his wife told him to go back to the store and return it because apparently it was too expensive. He went back to the store and decided to buy 2 Powerball tickets with the refunded money. The next day, he ended up winning the $300 million jackpot. This guy caught the exact same fish 2 months after already catching it. Harry John Patch was the last surviving soldier from World War I. He died at the age of 111 years, 1 month, 1 week, and 1 day. Tom Cruise divorced all 3 of his ex-wives the year they turned 33, and each is 11 years younger than the last. The first person to ever die during the construction of the Hoover Dam was this man named J.J. Thomas, who died on December 20th, 1922. On the same exact day, 14 years later, the last person died. And that man was JJ's son, Patrick.
This is what happens on an inmate's final day on death row. First, the inmate is woken up bright and early so they can make their final calls to their friends and family. The inmate then receives their last meal at around 4 p.m. Contrary to popular belief, they can't just order whatever they want. They usually just get a crappy $15 meal. Then the inmate and their close friends and family gather in a waiting room. For lethal injection, the inmate is strapped down to a chair by a team of police officers. Then a special man comes in, and this is when the inmate says their final words. When the warden gives the word to the executioner, the day ends and so does the inmate's life. You should never eat sushi, and this is why. One day, a man went to his doctor complaining about stomach aches and itchy skin. He later found out that his entire body was infected with tapeworms after eating contaminated sushi. Since the sushi wasn't cooked, the tapeworms transferred from the sushi into his body. These worms can grow multiple feet long and live in the body for years. But sadly, the worms entered his brain, which caused him to have a seizure and die.
Here's why everyone on Earth is actually your cousin. So this is your family tree where you have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, and 8 great-grandparents. Just based on this math, if you went back 40 generations, you'd have over 1 trillion ancestors alive at one time. That's clearly impossible because today we only have around 8 billion people on Earth. This means there was a ton of inbreeding between our ancestors. And that's only 40 generations. Humans have been around for 7,500 generations. So technically we should have this many ancestors, but that number is so big we can't even comprehend it. And since that's impossible, it means all of us shared a common ancestor at one point in time. So technically we're all cousins. Here's the truth behind the Grinch. So we all know the Grinch absolutely despises Christmas. However, at the end of the movie, his heart grows 3 sizes and he loves Christmas once again. But this story continues longer than you think. Now, it's quite obvious the Grinch isn't exactly right in the head. But during a scene in the movie, the Grinch seriously injures his head. This injury took a toll on him as he grew older and eventually he lost his memory. After him and his dog died, they were given a new life in a realm called Halloween Town, where they now lived as Jack Zellington and Zira. He would later re-spark his love for Christmas, just like he did when he was alive. Both eventually wear a Santa suit, both deliver presents, and both have a dog companion. This means the Grinch and the Night Before Christmas are tied together. These are the animals most likely to kill you in your state. If you live in Wisconsin, you better fear the deer because they're most likely to send you to heaven. If you're in California, rattlesnakes are not your friend. Texas is flood rafting fire ants. You do not want to mess with these things. In Florida, it's mosquitoes, so you better pray you have bug spray. In Hawaii, it's actually tiger sharks, so whenever you go there, don't go in the ocean. In Rhode Island, the most deadly animal is the black widow. Alabama and Arizona, you better watch out for dogs because they're hunting you. And if you're in Oklahoma, run because tigers are most likely to kill you.
Mandela effects that will make you question your reality, part 1. There's over 3,500 emojis, and most of us recall there being a robber emoji with a black beanie, a black and white shirt, and a money bag thrown over his shoulder. However, this emoji never actually existed. There was never a Disney intro where Tinkerbell dotted the eye with her wand. Curious George did not have a tail, and he never did. And Pikachu never had a black tip at the end of his tail. Jiffy peanut butter never actually existed. It's always just been Jif.
Here's the dark truth behind The Lion King. So we all remember this scene where Mufasa dies, right? Simba later finds his dead body, but they never actually show what happened to the body. You'd think the hyenas would eat it, but they actually don't touch lions. And according to Google, there's no other animals that eat lions. That is, except for lions themselves. Now I want you to watch this scene closely. Did you see that? Scar is playing around with some sort of animal skull, which just happens to look exactly like a lion skull. Does this mean that Scar ate his own brother's dead body?
I promise you will cry by the end of this. This swan had recently laid eggs and became a mother, but a group of teens at the Manchester Canal threw a bunch of rocks and bricks at her nest. They threw so many rocks and bricks until all of her eggs were crushed except for one. A few days later, the swan sadly died from a broken heart. Here's what would happen if you always ate your boogers. First off, the snot in your nose is actually used to protect you from harmful germs and bacteria. So when you breathe through your nose, the germs get caught in your snot so it doesn't enter your body. So if you eat your boogers, you're actually putting all those germs and bacteria back inside your body. This could cause you to get extremely sick or even a disease. Now send this to a friend who always eats their boogers.
Here are 5 reasons why people think the moon landing was faked. First is Neil Armstrong's footprints. Look closely at the design. Now compare it to this. This is what Neil Armstrong's boots actually looked like. And clearly they aren't the same. Now this is a rock they found on the moon. There's clearly the letter C written on it, almost like it was a movie prop. And isn't it weird there's no stars in any of the moon landing pictures? Almost like it was filmed on a set. And how is it possible this flag is even waving? Space has no wind or air. Even Buzz Aldrin, who was part of the moon landing, was quoted saying it was staged. The theory is the US did this to win the space race. Russia was also trying to go to the moon at that time, so they allegedly did it to beat them. Math is officially cancelled. School just started, but thousands of kids around the world are petitioning to cancel math forever. This petition already has 1,200 signatures. It all started a few months ago when a study came out showing that learning math beyond the basics is pretty much useless. And almost everyone on TikTok agrees. So instead of just doing their homework, everyone's protesting by using this app that allows you to scan your math homework and get all the answers instantly. It's called Goth Math, and it's the most powerful AI calculator. Links to my bio. Whatever you do, don't blink. I can make your palms look like they're moving. Now what I need you to do is stare at the letters in the middle of the screen. Whatever you do, do not look away and try not to blink. I need you to start thinking what letters are appearing on the screen. And in about 5 seconds, I'm gonna make your palms glitch out. If this works, make sure to hit the plus button and tag your friends to see if they can do it. Are you ready? Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Look at the palm of your hand right now. Does it look like it's moving? Comment what you saw. This is the power of time. These are the footprints of the monk Ha Chi. He stood in his temple for so many years that the floorboards warped around his feet. He prays over 3,000 times a day and always stands in the exact same spot. This bronze arm was attached to a tree when it was just a baby. It was attached in 1968 and the tree actually grew around it. Today, the arm is permanently attached to the tree. This is the corner of a bike store that's been around for over 50 years. Customers park there every day and it's been wearing down ever since. But before I show you the most heartbreaking one, I found an app where you can prank your friends by spamming them at maximum speed. Just press her in my bio, but don't use it for bad. This truck driver's face aged 20 years faster than it was supposed to. One side of her face was in the shade and aged normally, but one side was always facing the window and aged her 20 years faster. Scary things you should never ask Alexa. First off, never ask Alexa if she's working for the CIA or connected to them. If you do, Alexa will start blinking on and off as if it's trying to warn you. And never ever ask Alexa to greet people. A little girl in California asked Alexa to do this every time a guest entered the house, and over the next 3 weeks, Alexa began listing dead family members of the little girl every single time she walked by it. And finally, never ask Alexa about the dead. If you do, the Alexa will start laughing uncontrollably and will start repeating, "They're here, they're here, they're here." These are the luckiest moments ever caught on camera. This player's helmet fell off while running, but it ended up landing right back on his head. This box fell out of a truck while it was driving, but it ended up bouncing back in both times. This team thought they lost the game, but with 1 second left, a kid threw the ball all the way across the court and won the game for his team. A teacher forced her students to pledge allegiance to the pride flag, but when parents find out, they show up on her doorstep. This teacher, Mrs. Gillingworth, got rid of the American flag in her classroom because apparently it made her feel uncomfortable. Students were obviously confused and asked her why it wasn't there for the national anthem every morning. But instead of answering their question, she told them they had to pledge allegiance to the pride flag instead of the American one. She made a video about this on TikTok and it went super viral before being taken down. But it already went so viral that all the students' parents heard about this. That night, all the parents band together and stormed the teacher's house. But you won't believe what they did to her. Before I tell you, I found an app that helps edit your videos so you can get TikTok famous. Press here in my bio if you want to get famous too. The parents scattered American flags all over her front lawn. And only days later, she was fired from the school.
This is the smallest woman in the entire world. Her name is Jyoti Kisanji, and despite her height, she's actually 27 years old. She stands at just 2.5 feet tall and weighs only 11 pounds. You see, Jyoti was diagnosed with dwarfism, which will never allow her to grow beyond a certain point. Now, this is her compared to a 2-liter soda bottle, and this is her compared to the tallest man in the world who stands over 8 feet tall.
This boy made one last request before surgery, but then his parents find out and break down in tears. Jackson was a 9-year-old boy who was born with a cyst on his brain since birth. Growing up, he was in and out of the hospital and was always being tested on by doctors. Instead of spending time at the playground or making friends, Jackson has spent most of his life in a hospital doing MRIs or CAT scans. Although Jackson was a pro at surgery, he had a big one coming up on his brain and he was nervous. On the day of his big surgery, Jackson was taken away from his parents and was wheeled to an operating room. The nurses hooked up Jackson's IV for the surgery, but right before they put him to sleep, something happened. He called over the doctor and whispered something in his ear. He secretly asked the doctor for one last request. Without asking Jackson's parents, the doctor decided he was going to do what little Jackson asked. But when Jackson's mom walked in minutes later, she couldn't believe what the doctor had done to Jackson. Hit the plus for part 2. This woman's hair was cut like a loaf of bread, but you won't believe what came out of it. Megan was a 12-year-old from Australia who suffered from a rare disorder called alopecia. It causes balding at a super young age, and she was bullied for it all the time. It got so bad in high school that she could barely show her face in class, and she could only think of one solution. She vowed to never wash or cut her hair ever again in hopes that maybe this would cure her disorder. Years and years began going by and she kept her promise. She never washed her hair once. Last year, this picture of her went viral on Facebook and a local news station offered her $10,000 to cut it and see what was inside. But no one could have predicted what was actually inside of it. Before I show you, I found an app that allows you to erase anything from photos, and I mean literally anything. Press here in my bio if you want to try too. They found hundreds of tiny ants that had made a nest in her hair. North Korea just banned Mother's Day, but you will seriously not believe the reason why. If you thought North Korea couldn't get any worse, just wait until you hear this. Kim Jong-un just banned Mother's Day in North Korea for honestly the weirdest reason I've ever heard. They banned Mother's Day because apparently it was distracting citizens from their love for Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un didn't want his citizens to love someone more than him. North Korea has got to be the only country that's tried to get their citizens to love their leader more than their own family. Let me know what you think of this.
Only young people can hear this sound. So basically, anyone over the age of 25 will not be able to hear this sound. Now you're only allowed to comment on this video if you can hear it. In 3, 2, 1. Now send this to a friend to see if they can hear it.
I just found proof the Invisible Man existed and still exists today. It all started back in 1977 when a mother gave birth to a child that no one could see. Now, fair warning, what you're about to see in these next few pictures is extremely disturbing. Look closely at this picture. You can see there's a WWE Championship belt floating in midair. It's happened multiple times, and many people think the belt is either hanging from a string or using magnets, but the truth is, there's none of that. Here's another example of this phenomenon. As you can see here, there's an ice cream cone floating in the middle of a car. And the same thing happened with this floating mic. No wires or strings were used. You can tell by the way it's sitting, someone is holding it. But this one is horrifying. It may just look like a regular picture of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson looking into the audience, but if you take a closer look, you can see he's clearly staring at something, almost as if he's looking into someone's eyes. A puppy was thrown into a cheetah's enclosure, but you won't believe what happened to it. Kambali the cheetah had been separated from his family ever since he was 2 months old. Because of this, he became extremely aggressive, attacking anyone who came into his cage at the San Diego Zoo. One day, a woman came to the zoo carrying around her newborn puppy. But no one could have predicted what happened next as she dropped the puppy inside the cheetah's enclosure. Kambali approached the puppy, but you won't believe what he did to it. Before I show you, I found an app that can erase anything from photos, and I mean literally anything. Just press here in my bio, but don't use it for bad. To everyone's surprise, they cuddled, and they're still best friends to this day. Here's how rare your body actually is. Only 10% of all people have this thing called Morton's toe. It's where your second toe is longer than your big toe. But even more rare is having your tongue tied. This is where your tongue is literally attached to the bottom of your mouth. Only 5% of people have it, and it makes it harder to chew and speak. And only 1% of people have unbreakable bones. You heard that right. Some people actually have this, and you're basically considered the Wolverine. It's caused by this mutation that makes your bones 7 times more dense than the average human, but it's super rare. 50% of all the people on Earth can fit their fist in their mouth. I don't know anyone who actually can do this, but if you can somehow do it, comment right now. And can you tickle yourself? If you can, you're one of the 7% of the entire population. But only 16% of people can make a roaring sound inside their head. It's caused by flexing a muscle in your jaw. Hit the plus for part 2. People who got exposed online, part 3. This girl posted a photo to her Instagram story. But why is the fence behind her bending? This lady posted a photo of her in the desert. But if you look closely, it's terrible Photoshop. Rita Ora said she'd drop a new song if she got 100,000 retweets. But when the tweet only got 1,300, she claimed she was hacked. And this man said his dog died at 37 years old. But a guy responded saying the oldest dog recorded was actually 29.
Here's how TV food commercials are actually made. Number 1. Mixing glue with mozzarella cheese gives you a stringy, cheesy pizza. Brushing this on the edge of the pizza allows for a stringier and cheesier pull. And on top of that, there's cardboard underneath the pizza to support it and allow for a better pull. Jello and white glue equals a great cereal commercial. After all the glue is poured in, they place the cereal carefully on top so it doesn't get soggy and so it stands out better. As you can see here, the glue looks way more tasty. Cardboard and motor oil makes great pancakes. The cardboard is placed in between the pancakes to make the pancakes look more fluffy. Then they pour motor oil on top because it doesn't absorb into the pancakes. And when they put it all together, it looks way better.
Photos you are not allowed to see. There are no photos allowed inside the Supreme Court. But in 1932, this guy, Eric Solomon, snuck in a camera. He hid it secretly inside the cast of his broken arm. This is the exact photo that was taken. 5 years later, another picture was captured inside, but those are the only 2 pictures. Since the year 1878, the most powerful people in the world have been meeting at this spot in the middle of the forest in California. For decades, they have performed ceremonies and rituals. Billionaires, presidents, and many other celebrities have attended these events. But 40 years ago, a photographer actually snuck in and snapped this picture of some celebrities performing a ritual. We've all heard of Area 51, and it's no secret that it's completely hidden from the public. A pilot named Gabriel Maziz risked his life and flew over top of it in a private plane. He snapped this real picture of Area 51 in 2020, and it's the clearest picture we have.
A salon worker noticed this black line on a woman's nail, but when she finds out the truth, she immediately calls 911. Lisa was a grade 10 student who had recently got a job at her local nail salon. She loved painting nails and got quite good at it. But one day the unexpected happened when a young woman named Abigail came in to get her nails done, and Lisa noticed that something was wrong. There was a vertical black line embedded in every one of Abigail's nails. But when questioned about it, she just shrugged it off, claiming she had always had them. Reluctantly, Lisa painted her nails, having to do multiple layers just to cover the black lines. But that night, as Lisa laid in bed, she couldn't stop thinking about the lines. So she pulled out her laptop and began researching to find out the truth. After hours of searching, she came across one article and her heart dropped. She immediately called 911 and explained the situation. The cops rushed over to Abigail's house and busted through the door. But when they took one look inside, they couldn't believe their eyes. Hit the plus for part 2. I'm deleting this in 24 hours because if Noah Beck sees this, I could get in major trouble. But first, did you know that typing this in the comments will unlock you a secret emoji? And did you know that you can literally erase anything from your photos? Now I'm gonna show you how to do this, but promise me you won't use it for bad. Okay, first, press here in my bio, then click on erase anything from your photos. Now you can erase whatever you want. Thank me later. Here are 3 illegal baby names that you cannot name your kids. First up is the @ symbol. Now this name is banned in China because China does not allow people's names to be symbols. Next up, in Germany, you cannot name your kid Lucifer. Germany actually banned this name because in the German language, Lucifer means the devil. And lastly, the name King is banned in the United States. Now there isn't really a reason why it's banned, but if you live in the United States and want to name your kid King, you can't.
Here is the disturbing truth behind babies. Now I know we all love babies, but that's not what they actually look like. For starters, this is what a baby's skull looks like. It's what their skull looks like before they lose their baby teeth. Half their head is literally just teeth. And this is what baby MRIs look like. It literally looks like a demon sent from hell. Doctors usually hide these images from the mother, knowing what their reaction would be. I cannot look at a baby the same.
This is the most terrifying McDonald's you'll ever see. In 1986, the world's first floating McDonald's called the McBarge opened in Vancouver. The McPlan was for it to travel across the world, but then something happened. The 5 employees that lived on the McBarge started hearing voices at night and began hallucinating, slowly driving them insane. After 3 weeks of this, a fry cook named Megan couldn't take it any longer. That night, she took her own life and her body was discovered the next morning. After that, McDonald's was forced to shut down the McBarge and it was left abandoned for 20 years. That is until 1 year later when a company started renovating it and said it would be open within 1 year. But a year later, there was no news and the McBarge was still abandoned. So one YouTuber decided to swim out to it and break in through the roof. As he searched around, everything was eerily silent, but then he found something. Hit the plus for part 2.
This is the most terrifying McDonald's you'll ever see, part 2. As the YouTuber searched around the basement of the McBarge, he heard a sound come from the engine room. He immediately sprinted over to take a look, but you won't believe what he found inside. Before I tell you, I found an app that can erase anything from photos, and I mean literally anything. Press here in my bio if you want to try too. He found a detailed note that Megan the Fry Cook wrote before ending it all. After they posted all this footage to YouTube a few years ago, the YouTuber never posted again and no one knows where he is. Here's exactly what's going on between North Korea and BTS. Now, if you somehow don't know who BTS is, they're a super popular K-pop group from South Korea. You've probably heard their latest song, Butter, and the McDonald's meal they have going on right now. The whole world loves them, but there's one person who can't stand them, and that's Kim Jong-un. He stated on camera BTS is a vicious cancer, and how they should be executed one by one. He also said that K-pop could be the downfall of North Korea, and that it's corrupting all the citizens of North Korea. Here's why people used to wear these suits back in the old days. So this thing is called the Siberian bear hunting suit. Back in the 1800s, people would wear this all the time to go hunting. The suit was completely covered in rusty nails to protect them in case a bear attacked them. But these nails only sometimes killed the bear. Most of the time, the bear would still mangle you and the nails would do just enough damage so that it would eventually leave. You'd survive, but just barely. Here's how much different items cost on the dark web, part 1. Up first is a hitman. You can order it on literally anyone and it only costs $10,000. Next up, if you want to make someone completely vanish off the face of the earth, and I mean disappear without a trace with no chance of being found, this will cost you a hefty $60,000. This one's insane. You can order a fully trained silverback gorilla to protect you. If your dog doesn't protect you, these gorillas will do the trick. This will run you $400,000, but no one will mess with you if you have a gorilla. People who got exposed online, part 2. This girl said she met Ed Sheeran, but that's definitely not Ed Sheeran in this photo. This girl was complaining about traffic, but the reflection in her glasses says otherwise. This guy was on a walk with his girlfriend, but he got exposed for faking the picture. And this girl posted a picture of her in nature, but turns out it was just in some bushes on the side of the road. People who got exposed online, part 1. This guy sent a Snapchat to his friend saying he was chilling at the beach, but his sister exposed him. Clearly he was at a playground. This guy was offering a weight loss program for $500, but the lady in the picture said, "I didn't lose weight, I had a baby." This girl posted a photo of her at the Great Wall of China, but I don't think she's fooling anyone with that terrible Photoshop. And this model said, "Who said girls with depression can't wear tube top?" Someone replied, "Literally no one has ever said that."
Here are 4 images that confuse the entire world. This house looks like it's tilted, but it's actually level. That's just how steep some of the streets are in San Francisco. You probably think these vehicles are disappearing, right? Well, it's actually not a bridge, it's just a rooftop of a building. This dog looks like it has giant teeth, but it's actually just the fence behind him. And this is the confusing dress. Some people see black and blue, and some people see white and gold. Now comment what you see. You won't believe this man actually exists. This guy's name is Gary Turner, but he's better known as the Elastic Man. His skin is so stretchy that he's actually able to pull the skin from his neck over his mouth. Gary was born with a rare medical condition that allows his skin to be super stretchy. And in 1999, he actually broke the world record for the world's stretchiest skin. This girl started going blind until scientists discovered what was in her makeup. Tyla was born in Australia with a peculiar black birthmark across her face. For years she tried covering it up, but nothing worked. By the age of 16, she was a constant victim of bullying. She would come home crying every day after school and would never show her face until one day she had enough. She had heard online about this Chinese makeup company that claimed they could change your entire face. So without any hesitation, she ordered the product. 3 weeks later, the product arrived at her doorstep and it smelled horrible. But since she was so desperate for change, she covered herself in this strange liquid. Over the next few days, her birthmarks seemed to disappear, no longer being noticeable. Then, one morning before school, she felt an itch down her throat. Her vision instantly went blurry and she could feel something crawling underneath her skin. But you won't believe what was inside of her. Hit the plus for part 2. If your parents ever take your phone, they could be arrested for it. Jody May's kid got in trouble in school, so she took her phone away. But when her ex-husband heard about this, he called the cops and said it was his phone, so she was technically stealing. The cops then went to her home and arrested her. The prosecutor also agreed and brought up charges against her. But it turns out the husband technically didn't own the phone, so all the charges were dropped.
People who got what they deserved, part 1. A guy threw garbage out his window, so this chick taught him a lesson he'd never forget. This guy went to prank his friend but got a taste of his own medicine instead. This kid went to kick a ball at his brother but got exactly what he deserved. These girls took this guy's phone on an escalator, so he got revenge by taking their camera instead. And this girl tried waking her classmate, but she got exactly what she deserved. Actors who were never the same after a role, part 1. During his role in Who Killed Roger Rabbit, actor Bob Hoskins had to pretend all day that he was interacting with real animated characters. Months into filming, Hoskins began hallucinating and began believing that these characters were actually there in real life. The characters became a part of his daily life outside of filming. And even after filming ended, all these characters followed him around and haunted him for years. We all remember this iconic scene in the movie Psycho when actress Janet Lane is murdered in the shower. But filming this scene multiple times scarred her so bad that she was unable to take showers after. In a later interview, she confessed that after this incident, she was unable to take showers, but admits that when she had to, she would leave the curtains open and just stare at the door the whole time, terrified. Actor Bill Skarsgård, who plays Pennywise, was haunted by Pennywise for months after filming. Bill had nightmares about him every night.
Here are some genius people who beat the system. This sign says that this parking spot is reserved for green vehicles only, and this guy took that a little too literally. This sign said no bicycle riding, rollerblading, skateboarding, or scooter riding, but they never said anything about unicycling. This kid was asked to name the country that owns Greenland. Hint, it's not Greenland. So he answered not Greenland, and the teacher actually marked it right. This kid's school requires every student to wear a belt, but he didn't have one, so he decided to make one out of paper.
Here's the truth behind Moana. Moana isn't actually the real daughter of Chief Tui. Her real father has been Maui the entire time. Moana is his long-lost daughter, which explains why they look so alike and why Maui's so attached to her. It also explains why Moana is the only other character with powers, just like Maui does. She's actually a demigod, but Maui is too afraid to tell her the truth.
Records that will never be broken again. Number 1, the woman with the most children. Back in the 1800s, a Russian woman named Vasiliev gave birth to 69 total children. She had 16 pairs of twins, 7 triplets, and 4 quadruplets. And no one has come close to matching that number since. Number 2, the most nuclear explosions ever survived. This is Tsutomu Namaguchi. He has survived 2 different nuclear explosions. Tsutomu was on a business trip when the first nuclear bomb was dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. After miraculously surviving that explosion, he returned to his hometown of Nagasaki just in time to witness the second atomic bombing. But again, he miraculously survived and lived till the age of 93. This lifeguard beat Karen at her own game. Megan was a normal lifeguard working at this public pool in Southern California. They had one rule and one rule only: no outside food or drinks. But like any Karen, one lady thought that the rules just don't apply to her, because she showed up at the pool with a Starbucks drink in hand. The lifeguard immediately whistled her down, telling her she can't have that Starbucks in here. Karen was super angry because her Starbucks was the biggest size they had, and those are like 15 bucks. But Karen's defense was, oh, the next town over allows food and drinks. But this time the lifeguard screamed at her that she can't bring food or drinks in here. And at that point, Karen snapped. She decided to pour all her coffee into the pool. Turns out that was a pretty stupid decision, as she had now committed a crime disturbing the peace, which is a violation of state law. The lifeguard was able to now call the cops, and Karen was arrested, spending the whole night in jail.
Dirty secrets in kids movie. In the movie Lilo and Stitch, Lilo's sister has a wall filled up with dirty pictures, and I'm pretty sure that wasn't there by mistake. In the show Donald Duck, once the famous duck went to sleep, let's just say he got a little bit too excited. So I'm not too sure what he's doing in this scene. And from our favorite TV show SpongeBob, in this scene you can see SpongeBob get caught watching something he wasn't supposed to on TV.
Gary! I was just looking for the sports channel, Gary.
Here's what would happen if all women on Earth died. So if all women disappeared from Earth right now, the men would start to panic and many car accidents would occur. Then men would start stealing, fighting, and rioting. Everything would be a mess. But after a few weeks, the men would start to develop a solution. A lot of money would be invested in various studies and technologies. There would also be a lot more food because the population would start to die out. After a few months, men would start to fall in love with each other. But still, there would be no way to increase the population. After a few decades, there wouldn't be a single human being on Earth because everybody would be dead. Now comment how long you think you would survive. Disturbing facts that will ruin your day. Ants can form what's called a death spiral. This happens when a group of ants are lost and they follow each other's pheromone trails, leading to death by exhaustion. If you took all the spiders in the world and let them out in the Netherlands, they would consume the entire country's population in 3 days. Horned lizards squirt blood from their eyes as a defense mechanism. You can actually fit all the planets in the solar system in the space between the Earth and the Moon. Here's why you should never drink Coca-Cola. Paul Inman drank 5 liters of Coca-Cola every single day. He would also smoke 20 cigarettes an hour and nobody was there to stop him. And he would have panic attacks if he didn't smoke in an hour. And if he didn't drink 5 liters of Coke a day, he would get extremely agitated. He was so unhealthy that his lungs doubled in weight, which affected his heart as well. One day, his blood pressure was so high that he collapsed to the floor and died.
Common things you didn't know the purpose of. Did you know the holes in pen caps have a secret purpose? It's there because if any kids choke on it, they can still breathe. Every car has an arrow like this that literally tells you which side your gas tank is on. And the borders on paper are not there for the reason you think. Back in the 1900s, rats were super common and their favorite snack was paper. So companies ended up leaving extra space on the paper so if rats got to it, they hopefully wouldn't get to your writing. And did you know pop cans had a built-in straw holder? I had no idea. Disturbing secrets in kids movies. In the movie Coraline, in this scene, the character Mr. Babinski is seen wearing a strange badge. Take a closer look right there. That exact badge was actually worn by Chernobyl liquidators. Their job was to get rid of as much radioactive debris as they possibly could. They wore gas masks 24/7 and many of them died due to radiation. And the reason Mr. Babinski has blue skin is because of that radiation. There are 5 things you need to see before you die. First off is this Siberian bear hunting suit. It was used hundreds of years ago to hunt down bears, and if it attacked you, you'd probably be fine. Next, this is how much pollen is actually in a tree. No wonder everyone sneezes so much. Now we all know Shaquille O'Neal is huge, right? I mean, look how big he is compared to this can. But he is literally nothing compared to the tallest man that ever lived. This is Albert Einstein's desk the day he died. Since then, no one has quite figured out what he was working on. And this is what an empty Walmart actually looks like, but why is it so creepy? This kid is going to prison for playing Minecraft, but you will seriously not believe the reason why. Nikita Yuvarov is a 16-year-old kid from Russia who absolutely loves playing Minecraft. He loved it so much that he planned to build an exact replica of this Russian government building, who is going to allow other players to make it explode in the game. But when Putin found out about this, he did something horrifying. They threw him in prison for 5 years on terrorism charges. But rumor has it he may never be free again. Here are 5 animals that can kill themselves. Sometimes the horns of rams and goats grow so big and curved that it penetrates their skull and they die. Horses and donkeys can suffer from abnormal growth in their hooves. If their hooves aren't trimmed, they can no longer walk due to the pain and they'll die of starvation. When turtles fall on their back, it's really hard for them to turn back over. When that happens, they usually die from starvation or another animal eats them. During mating season, deers get into such violent fights with each other, their antlers get stuck together to the point where they can't get untied. When this happens, the deer die because they're unable to eat. Finally, the deer pig is famous for its 2 massive tusks. The growth becomes so uncontrollable that it pierces through their upper jaw, and in some cases pierces their skull, killing them. This woman is known as the African Kim Kardashian, and you will seriously not believe who her boyfriend is. Eudoxie claims she's all natural and has never done a cosmetic surgery. She posts tons of bikini photos on Instagram and has gained over 1 million followers just from doing that. Her role model is Kim Kardashian, and she hopes one day she can be as successful as her. She says a lot of men dream of seeing her, and when they finally meet her, they can't control themselves. But she ditched all those men and decided to make this guy, Grand P, her boyfriend. People who got exposed online. This girl said she met Ed Sheeran, but that's definitely not Ed Sheeran in this photo. This girl was complaining about traffic, but the reflection in her glasses says otherwise. This guy was on a walk with his girlfriend, but he got exposed for faking the picture. And this girl posted a picture of her in nature, but turns out it was just in some bushes off the side of the road. Here are 5 North Korean laws that will blow your mind. In North Korea, if your house catches on fire, you must save all the pictures of the supreme leader before you save your yourself or your family. And if you survive but don't save the pictures, you will be executed. Next, it is mandatory to vote in North Korea, and if you don't, they will kill you. Only problem is there's only one person to vote for, and that's this guy. But if you fall asleep in front of Kim Jong-un, you will be killed. This is exactly what happened to the Minister of Defense who was executed with an aircraft gun just for falling asleep in front of Kim Jong-un. Here's the truth behind Winnie the Pooh. All the characters in Winnie the Pooh represent a different mental disorder. Winnie represents an eating disorder, which is why he eats so much. Christopher Robin represents schizophrenia because all the characters in the show are actually just in his head. Eeyore represents depression, which is why he's sad all the time. Tigger represents ADHD, it's why he can never sit still. Piglet represents anxiety, there's a reason why he's always nervous. Rabbit represents OCD because he's obsessed with order. Rue symbolizes autism, it's why she's portrayed as so confused. And Owl represents narcissism because he thinks he's wiser than everyone else.